it's Tony from Cassette. Come back and welcome back to day 4 of 7 cassettes in 7 days. Someone actually commented on the post saying that would be a great name for a rom-com. I like that. That's great. Yeah, 7 cassettes in 7 days. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I have an idea already, but unfortunately it will never come to fruition. Anyhow, day 4, what are we looking at? We're looking at this, the EMI XT. Optimum bias performance, high precision cassette shell, extra high energy output. Now, EMI at this time, I mean, I'm going to assume that this is a late 70s cassette, pretty much because, right, if we look at the style, yeah, the red border, the red at the back, blah, 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 is basically trying to mimic the contemporary TDK of the time. But if you look at it side by side, you can see that it's not an exact copy, i.e. I don't think TDK actually made this, but they wanted to make it sort of kind of look like a TDK. Let's put them the right way around. So, you know, apart from the actual J card itself, looks nothing like a TDK. So they wanted to mimic them, maybe, I don't know, but we've got to assume that these two are contemporaries, i.e. late 70s, early 80s. But anyhow, thanks TDK, we're not about you. So EMI was a massive record label, and then they became part of the Thorn group, and it was Thorn EMI. And Thorn EMI, again, they were releasing films. I mean, Morons from Outer Space, I remember, with a Thorn EMI film. They did video distribution, and then they also had an electronics arm called Ferguson that used to manufacture televisions and videos and stereos and Walkmans. So they were a very decent, very large, probably the largest UK, you know, audio visual company. So I want to believe that they, you know, were keeping the British end up and not releasing a piece of junk as cassettes. Now, I haven't really used EMI cassettes because they sort of fizzled off and disappeared in the early 80s. I mean, I remember seeing some called Sound Hogs, which looked interesting, but, you know, British cassettes, variable quality, you know, unless they were filled with tape, which they bought from somewhere else. But like I say, EMI, big record label, big audio-visual company. I want to believe that they didn't release junk. So let's open this up and have a look at the actual cassette inside. La 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 la. I'll shut up now. You know something, this should be so easy, but it never is. Never is. It's like they don't want to be unwrapped. Okay, so a product from EMI Tape Limited, a member of the Thorn EMI group, designed and manufactured in the UK. Okay, so like I say, a lot of Maxell said they were manufactured in the UK, but the tape wasn't made in the UK, just the thing was nailed together in the UK. But okay, so far so good. Let's have a look. So a fairly average looking 1970s black shell with the teeny tiny window and a paper label. At least it has 5 screws in it. Other than that, not a lot to say. So there's your J card, pretty bog standard, all the stuff about the frequency response obtained when recording, blah 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 blah. Oh, actually that's a fair point, I tore the wrapper off without having a proper look at the back, and the back basically says the same as this. They're just echoing the same thing on the inside and on the back. So yeah, so right, and cuts with IAC. Okay, all right, so there we go, fairly ordinary looking cassette in an ordinary looking case and J card. Now let's have a look at the tape itself. Red leader, red leader, red leader. Right, let's have a now that ain't looking too good. Don't know if you can tell, it's not that shiny, but it's got sort of, let's wind it on a little bit more. Yeah, it's not massively well calendared, that, from what I can tell. I don't know if you can see, but it seems to have like sort of marks and little tiny tram lines. It sort of reminds me a bit of the late Nat cassettes, actually, in the sort of unpolished, unfinished sort of look of the tape. So I'm not overly optimistic at this point in time, but I guess, as always, the only way to find out how good or bad this is to fire up a deck, get it recording. So let's do that. Okay, we're going to use the Aiwa ADS 950 today. I haven't used the old girl for a while. In fact, she's feeling a bit neglected because somehow I managed to lose the Aiwa badge off it, but she still works. Anyhow, let's put the EMI XT in and let's calibrate it. Oh dear, that isn't looking too good. Very low on the old bias there, but right, let's see if we can crank it up a bit. Okay, let's get the levels. Alright, we're just in the realms of it being useful. I mean, I've had to remove all of the bias that I can there. I can't remove any more, but it's a bit more level, and I have to crank the levels up a lot, but we're just about there. Okay, that'll do. Alright, so we're going to use Synergy yet again. So let's have a play and see how it sounds. Well, contrary to what I was going to believe with the uncalendared streaky tape in this, again, that sounded alright. Minor dropouts there. In fact, the calibration might be a bit long because that to me sounded actually a bit louder than the source did. But again, this sounded a lot better than I thought it was gonna. this cassette makes me want to reiterate something I've said many times. And I'm going to say it again because we get new subscribers all the time, new watchers, and I still get the question, what is the best deck to buy? And the bottom line is this: smart money is spent on buying the best deck you can, not the best cassettes. You see, a good deck can take a cassette like this and make it sound good, whereas a bad deck, you could put in the most expensive, rare, top of the range Type 2 or metal that you want, and it won't make the most of it, whereas a good deck will make the most of a cassette like this. And it's not just that. In this day and age, a well-maintained, fully functioning deck with minimal features is a better buy than a top-of-the-line deck with unknown history, unknown servicing. It's as simple as that. So it's quite a tightrope, but again, this cassette, let's be honest here, was put in a deck that was probably 20 years younger than the cassette is. That deck, a 3-header, a decent one, you say what you like, but I love that Aiwa ADS 950. It's a great deck. But that deck, we had to crank up the record level all the way to the top, and we had to reduce the bias all the way down in order for this cassette to sound like it did. Fixed bias decks without the actual level calibration for the cassette, this would probably sound mediocre to pretty bad. If the internal bias in the levels weren't for this cassette, then it would sound pretty bad. But because of decks like the Aiwa or the NAX or whatever, that you can actually bias the cassettes and level them properly, you can get a decent performance out of cassettes like this that at the time, in a low-end fixed bias deck, probably sounded pretty naff. So I'm not going to sing the praises of this and say, oh, it's an amazing cassette, it's great. There's a difference between it being a great sounding cassette and a cassette that can be made to sound great. You know, put this up against a D of this generation, most decks are going to sound a lot better because they won't need to go to the extremes of calibration to be able to get it to sound good. The Ds, most decks were calibrated there or abouts, and it'll have sounded great. This, however, looking at the extremes it had to go to get it calibrated properly, would probably sound pretty naff in them fixed bias decks. So again, the smart money, get yourself, if you can afford it, a decent deck with calibration facilities, and then you can make the most out of mediocre tapes like this and not have to spend your money at £15 and £20 a pop Type 2s. You can shove this in and make a decent recording on it. And let's be honest, I said it before, I say it again, I'm not going to say dance while the record spins, but if you make a recording that's good, when you play it back, it sounds either good or bad. You can't compare it to the source once it's been recorded, so it either makes a good recording or it doesn't. And this made a good recording, which means it's a cassette that's worth using. Alright then, that's it for day 4. Let's look forward to day 5. But until then, happy taping. Take care. Bye bye.